This is Wind Waker. Alright, you know what? I've already done 2 of these videos, so let's just get straight to it. I'm here to go back in time and compare the world record from 2013 to the world record today. And before we get started, I just want to say I always choose what seems like a significant run in speedrunning history, so that's the reason I chose this run by Demon. Anyways, let's get to it. So like most Zelda speedruns, we have a long cutscene, just to make you sit there and, well, really think about all the mistakes you just made in your last run. But after around 5 minutes and 15 seconds, we are off to do what pretty much feels like a casual playthrough. So I'm just going to explain this as easily and as fast as possible. First, we grab the tunic, telescope, and then watch Tetra fall out of the sky, grab the sword to go save her, watch your younger sister get kidnapped by a bird, go venture off to save her, do some parkour, get shot out of a cannon, and land in Forsaken Fortress without your newly acquired sword. Do a few skips to save some time, and then get thrown out by that same bird. Then finally, we are at Dragon Roost Island where, in my opinion, the run truly begins. And the reason being is because we have a Wind Waker. And with the Wind Waker, we can do a trick called storage, which, to put it lightly, does everything. It does a whole lot of skips in this run. But one of the main things is it allows you to do a super swim, which is kind of like a BLJ in Mario. The game doesn't actually have a backwards speed cap, so by repeatedly turning around frame by frame, you'll gain a whole lot of speed, and then, well, you got yourself a super swim. Now at the time of this run, runners used to use the Wind Waker to do this trick, but nowadays, you can do a manual super swim, which is using that exact same glitch, but you're going to use a control stick and pause buffer to turn around each frame. And if you're good enough, you don't even have to pause buffer. But you basically skip that entire first section and, well, go straight to Dragon Roost. But now that we can super swim, we don't really need the boat, so let's go grab a bottle, then come back and do our second biggest trick in this run, and that is zombie hovering, which pretty much, as the name entails, allows you to hover while, well, you're dead. Basically, with this trick, when you die, you have a short amount of time to do a jump slash before the death animation begins. And if you mash the jump slash button over and over again, well, you basically just hover, which, as you can imagine, will skip a lot of parts in this run. But the issue is once you land on the ground, the death animation will start. So runners will use what's called a tingle tuner, which will allow them to heal, preventing them from dying. But after all that, once we hover to the entrance for Dragon Roost, we enter the first dungeon, which we do another hover. And, well, skip a whole lot of the dungeon. Then after we grab the grapple hook, we do our second use of storage, which is basically by opening a chest, Link's collision actually gets a whole lot smaller. So that allows runners to squeeze through the smallest of gaps, which in this instant will allow the runners back then to basically just skip getting the boss key. And then after a normal boss fight, we have Din's Pearl, which we don't get in runs today. Then afterwards, we're going to put it in the statue, and it's time for a very, very precise trick. Runners back then realized that by getting bombs early, we could skip through most of the second dungeon a lot quicker. But we need the pirate ship to be spawned at Windfall, which we have to go to Great Fish Island for. But Great Fish Island can't be accessed until later on in the game. So what runners had to do is super swim over there, the island will spawn in, but the cutscene hasn't yet, which will give you a few frames to cancel the storage glitch, and, well, the cutscene will play like normal. And then as for my favorite line in these videos, and one of my favorite moments is finding out that runners still do this today. Except for instead of canceling storage, they just void out. And then we do some more storage and enter the pirate ship and grab bombs early. We do an easy skip with the grapple hook to get this treasure chart, and then we are off to grab the Deku Leaf. And now to enter Forest Haven a lot quicker, we do what's called a Wind Waker dive, which will allow us to swim underneath the island, saving a whole lot of time. Nowadays, we still go underneath the island, but we kind of just do this way cooler and faster skip by letting a bomb push us out of bounds. But nonetheless, it's pretty much the same thing today. Then we watch a long cutscene, which runners will skip nowadays with storage. But we got the Deku Leaf, so we can now enter Forbidden Woods. And as I mentioned earlier, with our bombs, we can absolutely speed through this dungeon by basically not grabbing the boomerang and saving a whole lot of time by using bombs. And since we didn't grab the boomerang, we have to kill the boss with these said bombs. But after that's done, we grab Ferora's Pearl, and we go back to Outset Island to grab a bigger wallet. Then with our bottle, we save Grandma. Then a giant fish gives us Nehru's Pearl. We put both newly acquired pearls, which allows us to enter Tower of the Gods. Fairly casual playthrough with a few small skips here and there. We grab the bow, grab our first boss key, kill the boss, which I don't know what Nintendo's obsession with these hand-related bosses. no idea what's going on there, but anyways, we enter Hyrule Castle for the first time and grab the Master Sword. Then instead of fighting off all these enemies, we do an out of bounds clip to get to the barrier, and then we just save and exit. Now, let's talk about how runners get to this point without grabbing all 3 pearls and going through the Tower of the Gods. Well, we just super swim to Forsaken Fortress for the second time, and because after getting bullied by Ganondorf, the game just automatically takes us to Hyrule Castle and also just gives us the Master Sword, which saves, give or take about 2 hours. But let's go back to the old run. We still super swim to Forsaken Fortress and fight Phantom Ganon, get storage just to skip the entire fortress and get to the Helm Rock boss fight. Runners today will skip the Phantom Ganon fight by using storage still, but instead of having this weird black screen, they use a small collision to climb up the walls and skip the door. Similar ideas, but way different execution. And, speaking of similar ideas but different execution, we have this Helm Rock boss fight. Both runs will skip this fight, and the startup looks almost the exact same. We just use Deku Leaf to get past Helm Rock, and runners today will do an easy clip through the floor to get past these spikes. But runners back then would do a zombie hover. Now, they can't get the Tingle Tuner in this area, so what they'll do is they'll throw a rock that will spawn 3 hearts and hover into the hearts, saving them from that death animation. But unfortunately, nothing can save us from this long Ganondorf cutscene, so let's just skip that. After Tetra turns into Zelda and gets, put in a hole, we have a bunch of casual playthrough stuff, like, Fire and Ice Arrows, the Power Bracelet, Earth God's Lyric, Wind God's Area. We use a cool trick to get here, using the Wind Waker to stop Link from getting pushed back by the wind, skipping the needs for Iron Boots. Then we go off to grab an even bigger wallet, and, end up grabbing Iron Boots anyways, and then we are off to Earth Temple, which we breeze through by doing storage a few times, and even doing a zombie hover with storage to clip through the door, then afterwards skipping fighting this guy to grab the mirror shield, and then we do a whole lot more storage clips to get through all these doors, and lastly the boss fight. Now, I love this boss fight, and there is no way to skip this. We just fight the entire thing normally. After powering up our Master Sword, we head straight to Earth Temple, clip out of bounds using storage again, and, skip most of the dungeon, just to get Hookshot. And then we can do a cool bomb boost here to get a key, and make our way to this chest, where, once again, we're going to use storage. I hope you're seeing now how important this damn trick is, but that helps us skip most of this room, side up through this room, and skip another one of these doors, and, skip another boss key. But as for the boss, we listen to this banger of a song, and we'll defeat the final dungeon. And now for the Triforce hunt. I'll save you most of the gameplay, mainly because it's about 45 minutes. All it is a lot of Super Swim's casual gameplay. Aside from skipping this long, tedious side quest of gathering the 21 Joy Pendants and giving them to Miss Marie, this is all by, as you can imagine, using storage. Also, for the ghost ship chart, runners would use a hookshot and a blast from a perfectly timed bomb, which will allow you to get underneath the ship and hookshot a chest. Then runners will do most of the Savage Labyrinth, aside from damage boosting all these holes with a torch next to it. And then after that, we have another tedious part. Runners would use the ghost ship to farm rupees to get Tingle to decipher the charts. Then, 8 shards later, we have a completed Triforce. After all of that, runners are going to go back to Hyrule Castle, find Zelda in that hole we left her in, just for Ganondorf to steal her away, and now we can skip the barrier cutscene and head to Ganon's castle. And now for one of the biggest skips in Wind Waker history, which is barrier skip. Runners back then didn't do it, but this is one of the reasons runners today aren't doing anything I just mentioned, is because instead of powering up the Master Sword and getting the Triforce shards, and beating all the dungeons, we skip the Ganon's castle barrier. Basically, every time you run into this wall, it'll do damage, but if you pull Wind Waker on the right frame, you'll be inside of the wall. But there's a second wall behind this which prevents you from entering, so runners found out there's a tiny gap in this wall, and by lining up a very precise angle and using a bomb to push you through, runners discovered barrier skip, which saves a whole lot of time. But now that we're in Ganon's castle, we skip Ganon trials by using a bomb clip, out of bounds, and using Deku Leaf to enter the load zone, which is pretty much the same thing as today, except done at a different spot to save a bit of time. Then we make our way through the Phantom Ganon maze to get light arrows, which nowadays they skip light arrows by, yet again, using storage, which will unload the door and allow them to Deku Leaf to a different load zone. After grabbing light arrows, kill a bunch of bad guys, and watch the Puppet Ganon cutscene, which is skipped very precisely by voiding out and clipping through the door. But nowadays, since they skip the cutscene, Puppet Ganon doesn't spawn, which means runners had to do a zombie hover all the way to the top, drop a bomb on a pot, revealing a fairy, allowing them to stay alive and do another hover, this time using a morph, which will drop a heart for you to grab after the hover. It's a whole lot. As you can imagine, this is where a lot of runs come to die. But instead of doing all of that, runners back then will just fight Pup again, in which they still do some of these sick shots right after the cutscene ends just by sniping the tail. As you may remember, they don't have Boomerang to cut down these ropes, so they basically have to do this. Second phase is pretty normal, and then the third phase, they just keep hitting the tail with very quick and precise shots. And then after all of that, they climb the rope and kill Ganondorf. And that is the end. Thanks again so much for watching. All your nice comments on my videos are really appreciated. Twilight Princess is going to be the next Zelda game I'll be covering. That being said, it's really confusing, so it might take a little bit longer to make, so expect it in a month or so, but I'm going to try to upload a little bit more often in the next few months, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to stay tuned for those videos. It'd really help out the channel, and as always, thanks for watching. See ya.